Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this, our 6th event in our partnership with UK Construction Week, focusing on cultural change across the built environment. The session this morning is looking at the perspective from ex-offenders and prison leavers, so from the organisations that work with this particular audience. And I'm really thrilled that we've got a fantastic panel joining us. And as always, we're asking you to participate, to get involved, to share your thoughts, comments, ideas and actions. My name's Rebecca Lovelace. I'm the founder and chief dot joiner at Building People, and I'll be introducing the session and just explaining a little bit about Building People. And as always, this is not about us, this is about all of us. So please do use the chat function that you can see in front of you, as well as the Q&A, to ask questions of the panel, to share your thoughts, your observations, your comments and ideas. We will be taking all the outputs from the series of events we're running, just the 9 events over 4 days, and presenting them back tomorrow morning as an action plan, a summary of what we can do together to change the culture of our industry. So just to talk you through a little bit about what's happening this morning, please help us make some noise. We've listed below the various usernames and handles we have. And as I mentioned, please do use the chat box and the Q&A to get involved. We are crowdfunding. Building People has existed due to seed funding and the support from really the enlightened leaders that get it, we're trying to create one platform that brings everything together. And we'll be talking a little bit about the crowdfunding and how we've created a community of organisations that work with ex-offenders, and how crowdfunding into Building People can enable us to help those organisations to do more, to be more effective, to be more efficient. So where did this all begin? Very briefly, this is the slide that we came up with back in 2017, 3 years ago. And so this is just, please don't take it literally, but what we're just saying here is it's particularly messy and fragmented. We call this the spaghetti slide. There are huge amounts of fantastic organisations delivering brilliant activity focused on diversity and inclusion, on skills and careers and on social value, but it's not joined up. So please don't take this literally, but just understand that by not working together, by not collaborating as holistically, as cleverly as we could, we're being inefficient, and this is costly, and it's all focused on the short term rather than actually what we can deliver if we really do join things up. So that's why I took the moniker chief dot joiner, very much tongue-in-cheek, but it's certainly lasted. And what we've created within Building People, and I'm just going to show you our actual website, is a very simple opportunity just to join up what's happening. So we call this our 6-button approach, and we have, as you can see, 6 buttons. The first one lists now over 300 organisations that provide that reach into diverse audiences. So these are the organisations such as the ones we're going to be meeting shortly, but they help the individuals to find placements, to access funding for PPE, to find support with childcare, to help with training and courses, finding a mentor. So this is about how can we help the individual find these organisations. We've partnered with Designing Buildings Wiki, and the aim here is that we bring together content focused on diversity and inclusion, on skills and careers and on social value, and we bring it all together in one place. And this is, again, a real example of Building People. We found out that the wiki was doing that, but they didn't have a focus on people. So we said, well, let's create that microsite together, which is what we've done. So these two, search organisations and find information, are pan-industry across the built environment. What we're seeking to do through our crowdfunding is to make all of these other modules across the industry. So at the moment, Ask a Person, which is very simply as you'd think, who's out there that can give me some quick advice, support and guidance. And Learning and Events, which is a directory of activities from courses, from actual events, to training opportunities. And then Work, which is listings of everything from work experience to work placements to jobs. And Resources, these are all focused just on surveying because this has been our prototype. And we are seeking to grow this across the industry. And the whole point is that what we've created can be white labeled. So this can be given and shared with any of these organisations that have this reach into diverse audiences, meaning that they can provide a mentoring service to their individuals. They can provide access to jobs, to learning and events and resources all through their website. So we're not trying to make it complicated to find things. We're not trying to be competitive or duplicate effort. We're just saying that we will quietly underpin what's out there already. So just to finish off about building people, we also have on our site, we link to what already exists. So we have a directory of diverse businesses, and we've just finished, for those of you that were on the earlier session, we've just finished a session focusing on a national register of tradeswomen. So how can you find it? Well, one of the ways is through building people, as well as through any other search engine that's out there. We're not trying to make this about us. We're saying, if you want to find a register of tradeswomen, here it is. If you are looking for a supply chain of BAME or owned businesses, then Black Professionals in Construction has that. So let's go there. So we're highlighting what's going on. And the very last piece about building people, this is what underpins and enables us. It is these organisations that work with the diverse audiences that we as an industry need to engage with. And what we have here is we have the building people communities. And we've brought together about 35 organisations that have reach into specific communities. It's open, it's free, we want everybody to join in. In the, for example, the ex-offender community, which we're focusing on today, you can see the listings of some of the ones that we have working with us, and some represented on the session this morning, and some that can't join us. And this afternoon, for example, we have a session with the LGBTQ community, and we have some of those organisations reflected here. So this is building people. In a nutshell, what do? We connect, we aggregate, we join together, we enable, we bring together the activities that are already in place that focus on diverse, disadvantaged, underrepresented audiences. So, welcome to Building People. More importantly, welcome to the panel. So I'm going to ask our panel to please, if you could put your cameras on, and you can also turn your mics on, and I will just introduce each of you. Firstly, a huge thank you for joining us, because you bring such expertise, passion, and knowledge of the whole ex-offender and prison leaver audience, and this is very much your session. We're focused on cultural change. So I'd just like to introduce, I'd start with Greg Fisher. Greg is from the National Prison and Probation Service in Wales, so a big welcome to you, Greg. And to Emma Wagstaff. Emma's from the National, Emma actually is the National Construction Lead for the New Futures Network. So again, fantastic to have you, Emma. And Fran Findlater, the Chief Executive of Bounce Back. All three will have the opportunity to talk about their organisations and what they do in the following session, which is chaired by Terry Watts, Terry wearing his Building People hat for today. So I'm just going to encourage all of you, please, I will keep turning my head to look at the chat to see what's going on, and also to look at the Q&A. So please do share, who you are, what you're doing, what your thoughts are, your observations, your responses to the questions we're asking. Put those in the chat. When you do, I'll turn my camera on and pop up and share that, and equally for comments. Other than that, I'm just going to hand over to Terry with a huge thank you for what will be a fantastic session. Terry.
No pressure there then, Rebecca. Thank you very much.
None at all.
Yeah, what I'll be doing in just a second is to ask each of the speakers to give us a 2 minutes. I know that people are always passionate about their own organisations, but 2 minutes on what their organisation does so they can position it for the audience that are listening. I'm hoping that there are people there who are employers who really need to find out about what it is that ex-offenders can offer the built environment, and also that they learn a lot about how the routes to that might work for us. Personally, I've already learned a lot from the meetings we've had to try and build up to this event. So what I think we thought we'd start on, first of all, is the whole idea is that we need to change the culture of the built environment is the premise under which we've put over all of these events. And so I'll be asking you as we go through to try and link back to what do we need to change within the built environment to help your messages and your drive come through more effectively. And I'm hoping that we'll end up with an action plan. So the crowdfunding activity that I'll mention again, which we have now, we really want to create a groundswell of activity to improve a lot of the built environment. And some of that funding will go towards helping you and your colleagues in the industry, that's part of the sector, to try and do a better job, and not a better job, I'm doing a wonderful job, but get further reach into the sector and get more ex-offenders into good positions as we go through and try and improve the workforce and actually find the skills that we need. So first question really is one of the things that was, and it was obvious really, I'm a little bit embarrassed to have to admit it, but people always think, I think, that ex-offenders go into entry-level jobs, but that isn't always the case, I don't think. Fran, would you like to kick off on that and explain more about what your organisation does for us?
Yeah, thank you, Terry. There's well, what we do, just very quickly what we do, and I'm going to say what we normally do, because obviously nothing is normal anymore. So let's just, start with the predicate by saying that things have changed. Effectively, we train in prisons, in construction. We support people when they come out. We also support the employers on release, and we get people into jobs. And getting people into jobs has always been our focus, and our work has always largely been in construction. And we are an employer ourselves because we have our own social enterprise. So we employ people as well. And in essence, we then place them with employers with whom we have partnerships. So that kind of is our model. Changed quite dramatically, as you can imagine. We're not in prisons at the moment because quite rightly they're keeping their prisoners safe and protecting them from any potential illness. And so there's a lot of rethinking now, and I think it's an exciting time from the point of view of this event to be able to think of things differently now that we're in a very new world and we can look at things differently. So that's what we do. I think going into, when we talk about, I'm talking about construction, obviously there are a number of people that want entry-level jobs because they do, and they haven't worked before, and we're giving them an opportunity to do that. But it is absolutely clear there are many talented people who want to do a wide variety of jobs. And I think that's somehow one of the bits of perception that needs to be changed, that there is an opportunity not only from employers to employ people and help train them into every area, from engineering to surveying to, there's a broad spectrum. But also there are a number of people with a huge amount of talent, and I think that's where people have to think slightly differently. It's not just about entry-level jobs. There is the potential to put people right across the board, and we say the built environment includes everything. Frankly, you can be catering in the cafe in an organization, or you can be you can be writing their marketing plan, so it's absolutely everything. In our terms, the opportunities are there.
Okay, thank you very much, Fran. Good stuff. Emma, you're unmuted. Would you like to go next and tell us about your organisation and then answer the question about the diversity of people you get in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for New Futures Network, so we're a bespoke part of the prison service, and our focus is kind of brokering partnerships between prisons and employers. So being able to link in with employers to be able to find opportunities through education, employment and training, and to be able to find those opportunities for our prisoners. So we kind of have three main focuses, I suppose, really. So the first is looking at work within prisons. So we have the opportunity of being able to bring work into prison to be able to provide meaningful activity for prisoners while they're still serving their prison sentence. So again, that could be anything from engineering to waste management and recycling. So, there's a broad spectrum, and as Fran said, there's lots of skills within our prisons, and that's really good for us to be able to use that opportunity to be able to help develop these training opportunities. So we've got work within prisons, then we have something called release on temporary license. So that's when we're able to release prisoners into the community to be able to undertake work, training and education opportunities. So again, that's when we're working with prison employers to be able to say these prisoners have this skill set and this is the value that they could bring to your business. And then employment upon release opportunities as well. So for us, we kind of work across the prison service within England and Wales, and we're able to find those, I suppose, the skill sets that the employers are after, which can be very diverse, can be from a mixture of all different skills and education. So it could be as well that if the education and training has been delivered within prison itself, or whether it could be skills that an individual has previously. So there's a broad spectrum there, absolutely.
Good stuff. And Greg, just to remind you, you're on mute at the moment. So, okay, good man.
No, thank you, Terry. And just touching on exactly what Emma says. So my role is I'm based in Wales, covering all the 6 Welsh prisons. So all the amazing work New Future Networks does in nationally sends us really good opportunities in Wales, and we got some fantastic workshops up and down our 6 Welsh prisons. So I cover Swansea Prison, Bridgend Prison, Cardiff Prison, Prescoed and Berwyn Prison. In those workshops, we have some great construction academies that we set it up. We've also got a scaffolding academy that we're talking to. We've also got painting and decorating workshops, bricklaying workshops, and we're also looking at partnering up with one of the biggest construction companies to support us with dumper license tickets, crane tickets, etc., etc. So one of the most innovative projects that we've got at the moment, we are building modular housing from our prisons. So we built 13 homes in Bridgend Prison. We proved the concept, giving prisoners great carpentry and joinery skills, and now we're setting up a purpose-built factory in Berwyn Prison, building thousands of homes for that in support with Welsh Government. So yeah, we got some really good opportunities, and we can only be guided by you guys in the industry if we are training at the right level. So we'll obviously be guided by yourselves because you are the industry's experts, but it'd be interesting to see during the Q&A what questions you've got. So thank you, Terry.
Good stuff. So that does show an enormous range then, from off-site manufacturing and all the trade and through to the professions as well. Because one of the things that's I think the barriers, we need to talk about the barriers and the changing culture that we need to see to make the sector more accepting of ex-offenders. And one of the things I'm always struggling with in my role, I work mostly with the Charter Surveyors Training Trust, trying to change the image of the industry for young people, is that people think of the industry as being on site, out in the wet and the cold, digging holes and laying bricks is basically what people think, or they think of architects, and there's nothing in between. There's a whole broad range there. So you've already told us there are a lot more skilled people out there we can be calling upon, looking at trying to incorporate ex-offenders into the workforce. What about the gender issues? Are there other dimensions on that we need to focus on? Because people always think of I always think, and I'm assuming everybody else is like me, a bit rash, but you always think of ex-offenders as being young and male. Is there the same opportunity for Emma nodded vigorously there, so I'll pass it to you, Emma. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think females in construction is something that we really need to continue to be exploring. So within New Futures Network, we have a lead for the female estate, and she's passionately working with the females to be able to provide these opportunities, because you're absolutely quite right. It is that stereotype that all of a sudden it would be predominantly a male environment, which I think it probably is. But, you know, we can change that and we can make that difference. And as well, you know, the number of conversations that we have had, and I know Greg will kind of think the same, and you kind of think, you know, oh, we'll have a workshop in the female estate. Why aren't we having a construction one? Absolutely. You know, this is what we should be doing. And this is a really good opportunity for those females. It could be maybe they've never been given that chance before. So if we can do that, then absolutely, I'm totally behind that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And one of the things also I think is important, and hopefully their employers will be seeing this kind of stuff, is people might be nervous about taking on ex-offenders because you don't really know what you're getting yourself into unless you happen to be one yourself, I guess, or you've got more experience of it than a lot of us have. But there's a lot of support you provide in placing an ex-offender into the workplace. Can you give us a little bit of an idea about what that might be, Fran? Oh, Fran's on mute. Sorry, that's badly chosen. Sorry, Fran.
Absolutely, and we do feel that that's the most important element of what we do. And you know, it was interesting hearing Greg talking about the construction training, because you know, in the same way we're delivering the training in the prison, but the more important thing from our level is to make sure that we can engage with the guys when they're in, and then work with them through the gate and support them ongoing for up to 6 months or a year. And when you're talking about support, I think that's why I mentioned it very briefly earlier. We don't just support the guys themselves, and it is women in some cases, because we are in a couple of women's prisons, but not with training centres. We actually support the employers as well. And I think that's where New Futures, I know, do this too. And I think the most important thing is that employers feel that we're helping them overcome the hurdles, because there's a learning curve and there's an understanding. And gradually, as people are very focused on the social investment that they have to put in as companies, particularly large corporates, they're recognizing that this is something they have to get good at. You know, people are, and we work very closely with people who are really embracing taking different groups of people. So whether it's homeless or it's long-term unemployed, or it's ex-offenders and women. And all of those groups are very much in people's radar now. And it's very important to people to be able to engage with them. And I think that the easier one can make it, that gets over that perception issue. But absolutely, some don't need any support. Some will come out, go straight into work, but some need a lot. And we are absolutely there to keep with them for as long as they need it. And we run things like lunch and learns, or spend time with employers, and all the questions that come to us, which are things like, should I publicize this? Should I tell the rest of the staff? Does it, you know, how do we deal with this, particularly when people are on release on a temporary license? As Emma mentioned, people say, you know, what do we do about the fact they have to disappear like a genie at 5 o'clock at night? Do we tell people what they're doing? Often, you know, they won't go for a drink with everybody in the office. Those kind of things of the past, of course. But those kind of things are the things that we help employers to overcome as well, and to think about. So I think that, you know, from our point of view, definitely the support at every level is really important. And even for our own team, you know, we have our painting and decorating business, and we support them, you know, wholeheartedly the whole time.
So it's a really encouraging message then. There's a good workforce out there ready to come on board, and there's people like yourselves who will help the employers take them on. So sounds like it's all going swimmingly. And what are the barriers you have to overcome then, Greg? What's the biggest problems you face in trying to make the system work? Well, first of all, and also, are there more prisoners, ex-offenders, and people who want to come into the workforce than there are places for them, or vice versa?
Yeah, and it's about changing perceptions, and touching exactly what Francesca was talking about just now, was the ideal opportunity for people who might be skeptical to take ex-offenders on, employers that may be sitting on this stream now. With ROTL, it's a try before you buy, effectively. So if you're working with a ROTL prison, which in Wales would be Prescoed Prison, when they go out to site, they won't be on your T's and C's, but they'll still be working on site to prove that they are suitable. And I think that's an ideal opportunity for an employer to buy into somebody. Does he want this chance? Is it for real? Because, you know, if he starts messing around on site, we can get him back into the prison. So it's a great opportunity through ROTL to prove this person, male and female.
Oh, roll. So release on license. I've just worked that out. Okay, sorry. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, release on temporary license.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, good stuff. And so, what are the barriers you then see? Who's you know, what are the problems you find in getting this to work generally?
I think construction for me is quite favourite for ex-offenders. It seems to be a route goes in. A lot of our guys have worked in the construction industry previously. So barriers predominantly would be people's perceptions, I think, is one of the main barriers. You know, we working with local and national companies, some significantly one of the biggest national companies work very closely with us. So I think it's just getting that local employers on board as well for me. And it's, again, just sort of repeating, but changing people's perceptions that these people, yes, they've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. But once they've been given the chance, they prove to be one of their best employers. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is, you know, I'm there to change lives. I joined the prison service, oh my God, my anniversary today, 17 years today, to make a difference in people's lives. And I think when you do that, that's what it's about. That's what that's what drives you further. But we can only do it with the employers to make this work.
And Emma, would you say that's your biggest barrier to overcome, is the preconceived ideas of the employers primarily?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. And, you know, that's one of those things that we are trying to work towards. And I think as well, it's the you know, what we can offer as well. So, you know, if there are skills gaps out there, then it's being able to get that message across to say that this could be a good workforce that's able to, I mean, I think I understand about a third of organisations say that they have skills gaps. So it could be that, you know, if we might have that population there that's able to kind of feed into that as well. So I think it is a case of us being able to have that conversation, to be able to say, you know, and it could be kind of going back to the previous question as well. You know, if it's thought of as, oh, it's only a labourer, or, you know, it can only be a certain type of role, then as we said, you know, it could be that those skills are sat there and they're just waiting to be tapped into. So I think it is about, as Greg says, changing those perceptions and being able to have those conversations.
Yes, no, thank you. And
Terry, can I just add something?
Yeah.
Sorry, just to add something what Emma was talking about, was I constantly, part of my role is going out speaking to employers to give them a chance and opportunities, where us in government, HMPPS, aren't taking ex-offenders on. However, we've changed that now. We're in a position, we're working very closely with a cabinet office scheme called Getting Forward into Employment. And we've actually employed somebody under HMPPS who works very closely to my team. So it just shows that we're prepared to, you know, yeah. So I just thought I'd add that, Terry.
That's really encouraging. That's good. Well, Rebecca's popped up on the screen, which usually means she's got a question from someone in the audience. But what are you going to tell us?
Yes, it does. I've actually got 2 questions, which is highly exciting. One of the questions has come in via email, actually. So somebody just wanted to, I don't know, sort of come straight to me, I guess. But they're just asking about SMEs. And is there support available for the smaller businesses that might want to do this but are struggling financially? Is there any support available for SMEs and smaller businesses? And there's another question, but I'll come back.
Fran?
Well, certainly, I think, I presume we're talking about SMEs taking ex-offenders.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think across the board there is support, not financial support, but definitely in terms of taking an individual. We would work with them in exactly the same way as we work with any large corporate. And that's actually a very good point, because it is large corporates that often have the situation in place so that they can, or the ability, a much easier ability to be able to manage this, because it's part of their corporate responsibility. And small companies, it is often very hard. And we spend a lot of time with, if you like, the third tier in construction, subcontractors, working with them as well to help them, and I think it is, and support them into taking people. So I would say absolutely, Rebecca, the support stays exactly the same. It doesn't matter how small you are. And also we understand how a small organization feels, because we're a relatively small organization. You know, we've only got 30 staff, and we're quite small, so we do absolutely get that, and we know how to, and also our own social enterprise is an employer, and so we know exactly how that operates. So we're very happy to help and support with all the same things that we use with large organizations, and we totally get it.
I think as well, if I could just add in there, I understand that the average non-managerial vacancy costs about £2,000 to recruit. So that's where as well we will be able to help you, because we would be able to kind of see the needs of your business, to understand the kind of role that it is that you're wanting to fill, and be able to work with you. So we would work closely then with the prisons and yourselves to be able to identify that suitable individual who, you know, who has the skills and everything that you need to fill that role, and then we would be able to identify them, ensure that from our point of view, so we obviously know these individuals, so we would know if this is a good role for them to be able to go into, and then would be able to help facilitate interviews and things like that. So there would also be a help with the overall recruitment cost for where we would be able to try and find those suitable individuals.
Brilliant response,
Rebecca.
Yes, so Renee's come in with a question asking about ethical concerns. So is there a concern about creating a labour market for prisoners, and some of the ethical concerns that may raise? Who would like that one?
Come on, guys, who's going to take that one? Greg, you're smiling.
Yeah, I'm smiling just to make sure that I don't get asked this question. No, I understand why people would ask that question, Rebecca. From our perspective, it's about giving these people, we're not going to inundate it with ex-offenders. We're still going to be giving other people the opportunity, but it's just giving these people a chance. And I suppose once, we would have done a lot of work to get these person ready, but we just need someone to give them a chance, that's all. So I probably can only answer that from a prison perspective. I don't know if I've actually answered that question, but that's...
I think it's a societal thing, isn't it? So, we don't need to judge what they did before and what they're being punished for and why they're an ex-offender, but often it's a culmination of all sorts of events and consequences of their previous life, which may or may not be anything to do with not their fault. So, it's...
I think so as well.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Fran, go on.
Okay, just very quickly. I mean, basically, there's two things. There's a level. It's about a level playing field, and actually, if you're recruiting, say, you're recruiting people on their skills, and the other qualities that you would always recruit on. So effectively, you're putting people into a level playing field, and I think that's really important that we see people as individuals and not just as ex-offenders, and that's one of the key things that we have to try and overcome. There's also inevitably at every level, and again, that's across a whole band of separate groups of society. So whether it's about, as I say, long-term unemployed or others, the thing is about the cost to all of us in a sense of just letting someone just go back to prison because they haven't had an opportunity. So that's a slightly different thing, because you're putting people back into a level playing field, and you're also interviewing individuals in exactly the same way that you would be, and you also with people that come through us and through Emma or from Greg, you will absolutely know what their past is, and you will know at what stage they're at, and they will have had a lot of time and attention spent with trying to make them or making them or helping them and supporting them into going through the rest of their lives differently. Whereas often you will be employing people, in my case it's often painters and decorators, but often you'll be employing people in construction and you won't know about their past. Now obviously you can do a DBS and you can do various other things, but the actual motivation and where they're coming from, nobody would be put forward, and I think Emma and Greg would say the same, if we didn't think they were suitable for a job and that we hadn't all worked with them to make sure that they are. And I think what I'm talking about is getting things back to a level playing field. And as Greg quite rightly said, we're not going to absolutely flood the industry with, any industry with hundreds of people who've just come out of prison.
I think as well, yeah, the key things for us is reducing reoffending. So we know that by being able to provide employment opportunities, it does reduce reoffending, which then in turn saves billions for the economy. I can get my word out. And as well, key thing is preventing potential victims as well. So it's kind of all of those things that I kind of think feed into that, really.
Good stuff. Okay, so what I've concluded so far is that the main barrier you see is actually awareness and open-mindedness of employers taking on ex-offenders into their workforce, because you've got a whole range of people with all different sorts of skills, and you'll manage the process of transition from wherever they are into a successful work. And also the benefits to society as well as the employer of a workforce. Almost you've done the first interview almost, and it's just a question of whether they fit in the environment that they're going to be put into. So that's all good. But if I was an employer, then imagine I'm a small, not painter and decorator, because I think my friend might know the answer to that too easily. But if I'm a small construction company in Shropshire somewhere, and I know it's not Wales, Greg, but how would I go about trying to do the right thing and open up an opportunity to, I need a skill of some sort. How do I go about finding someone? Would you like to take us through that, Greg? You do that first, because that'll be the Welsh angle there. So
yeah, no, that's fine. From an employer's perspective, we would want to know what level of training we could run in custody. I think stuff we've run in prison throughout the last 15 years potentially has no value in prison, but everything's got a value. I shouldn't say it has no value, but actually making them framed for the industry. So for the industry to tell us what can we do to train in prison to make them employable. So, if it is paint and decorating, if it is plumbing, whatever that is, we need to know that, and we can only have that knowledge from the employer.
So do you respond to individual commissions, if you like? So I come to you and say, I'd like to recruit a trainee or a part qualified electrician, and you then
yes.
find, yeah.
We would find somebody suitable for that role.
Is that the way it works with you as well, Emma?
Yes, exactly the same. So even if it comes in, through a website or through a national campaign, then that will be filtered down. So it could come to myself as a construction lead, and then I would be able to have the conversation to identify the area, the location, the type of work, and then we would be able to link in with our regional brokers such as Greg to be able to then they would be able to source the individuals within the prisons and what prisons would be suitable.
Yes.
So Fran, is that how it works? Because you're not so public sector related, obviously you work closely with public sector.
We're only in 6 prisons or 7 prisons, I think now, and we work mainly in London, although we do work in Leeds and also in near Woking. And I think it's not actually that easy, I don't think, to actually, if you sit there as an employer and just say, gosh, I'd really like to take someone from prison. I think it is quite challenging. I think New Futures does a fantastic job because they are so linked in around the country, which is a fantastic benefit. And often people will find them online. And it is just a matter of searching. I can't think of any more brilliant way of doing it, because all of us are very open and amenable to any inquiries we get, and we get a hell of a lot actually, and we're getting increasingly more, funnily enough, since COVID. So a lot of employers are coming to us and asking about what they can do and how they can link in with us. It is usually through just finding our website, but it is, I know that a lot of people have mentioned that it's not that easy to actually penetrate the because a lot of people will automatically go to a government website, not necessarily New Futures, but sometimes if you just go, it's quite muddling. So I think that's something that could, that bears thinking about, but certainly organisations like us and a number of others are there to help if anybody gets the inclination.
Okay.
And Terry, just to add a little bit of context around that as well, we'd love the employers to come in to interview the prisoners as well. So we want the employers to be part of that interview and selection. Because there's no benefit myself putting in front of you X amount of people. If the employee can come in, then it's obviously the employer's decision then as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I think that's really encouraging, because I know that I think we should be able to do something good with that, because as you all know, there's like 420,000 organisations in the built environment, and many of those have been run by people who have worked their way up to the top, having started on the tools or from a disadvantaged perspective themselves. Some of them have come in via the university route anyway, but some of them haven't always come in the most obvious way to the built environment. You often stumble into it yourself rather than plan to go and do it. And I think there's a lot of people there who would buy into this social agenda, really, that they'd like to give someone who maybe had a disadvantaged start another chance as well. So I think there's probably an opportunity there. So maybe that's one of the things we need to try and overcome. But I see Rebecca's popped up in the corner of my screen again. Another question.
Such a treat for you, Terry, to see you popping up and bothering you. It's a clarification from Renee. And I think it might be worth, because obviously you're all talking about ROTL and we know release on temporary license, but it might just be worth digging in a little bit to that. So Renee's asking, she's talking about the ideas of companies or governments bringing labour opportunities to prisoners as a chance of work experience, but are they paid? So are they compensated for their efforts the way that somebody who's not in prison would be? So it might just be worth explaining how does it work when somebody comes out, and if they do work experience or a placement, is that paid? And how does the bottle side of things work?
Yeah, so, that'd be interesting. Anyone volunteering to do that? Go on,
Greg.
Yes, so I'd like to answer a little bit to that around for us, under stage 2 paid employment, if you're a category D prison, you'd expect the employer would be expected to pay a minimum of minimum wage. A lot of the employers that we work with under ROTL pay them a full-time wage, and that's how it predominantly works. We used to do placement under stage 1, but that's now been it's only stage 2.
Those can you explain stage 1 and stage 2 to those who aren't familiar with the
yeah, it's basically a process that a prisoner will go through during his category Ds. So when he's in a category D prison, technically stage 1 would be a little bit of prove your behavior, and then obviously if you are going to cooperate with the regime and everything like that, then you'll be eligible for stage 2 employment, which now is paid employment. So then they'll be going out on site to work in any kind of industry.
So something that's come up from one of our earlier sessions, this was, I think it will be yesterday, but focusing on ex-military. And they were saying one real tangible action would be for more employers to offer placements, to give them the chance to get the experience. So one of them was saying his CV would just come back with a feedback saying, you don't have experience. And he said, but I can't get the experience. And in fact, his time in the military had given a huge amount of experience. How can somebody, can they come out for a week of work placement, work experience? And is it as easy as I think you're saying it is?
If I'm honest, Rebecca, probably Emma came from a category D prison, so it'd be great for Emma to answer this question.
Yeah, that sounded wrong there, Greg.
Yeah, that's true. Worked in a category D prison. Sorry, Emma.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of purpose of release on temporary license. So what we're looking for is to be able to, for individuals to get that opportunity to be able to prove their skills, and as well as gaining that experience. So there's all sorts of different, I think there's over 400 different companies that we're working with, and they can be from charities to big national companies, and so it just depends. Now we obviously ensuring that we're providing the same opportunity for somebody who is also doing that role. So it's not a case of somebody being able to go out and do the role along somebody else who's being paid £20 an hour, and we wouldn't expect the individuals to obviously not to be paid in that situation. But if it's a case of somebody is wanting or is needing to maybe gain some skills of talking to people, engaging with people, that kind of thing, then absolutely there is that opportunity there where they're able to go out and get that experience, where so it will be tailored to each individual as to their needs as well. So we absolutely want to be able to provide those opportunities, but as long as we're doing it in a fair way for those prisoners as well.
Yeah, so you don't have to be exploited. That makes sense. And Fran, I as an employer, I don't really have a feel as to, I'm not an employer, but if I was an employer, I'd feel are there hundreds of prisoners out there waiting to join the built environment, or is there a short supply of the right sort of people, or what's the missing bit?
Well, certainly the enthusiasm for the built environment is massive, and we're getting I think one thing just to touch on here is, and I know it's the elephant in the room, but I hate to bring up COVID because it has changed things. So inevitably we can't go into prisons right now, which is absolutely right. But what we're having to do is find ways of communicating with the guys in. And Greg, I really don't know if in Wales it's slightly sunnier, as they say, in terms of this. But and absolutely, one of the things Greg said earlier is that you would take employers normally into the prison to give them that sort of feel for it. So I think one of the interesting things is what we're getting is massive amounts of feedback coming out of the prisons now. And yes, there's a massive demand for construction. Now, in terms of that, people have to act as this sort of conduit. So whether it's Emma, whether it's Greg, whether it, to feed this through to construction companies, we have relationships with a large number of construction companies, as do all three of us. And so what we depend on is they are our lifeblood. They are the people that know that we're here and who support us by putting us through their supply chains as well, so that their supply chains know we're here as well. Labour agencies know we're here. So working with people like HS2, Tideway, and a number of large, construction projects, you are getting access to a large number of construction partners, and they will need all of us. They won't just need us in isolation, Emma in isolation, or Greg. They need all of us to support their requirements. Now, obviously, again, the construction industry was until 6 months ago needing an enormous number of people. Things have changed. It doesn't mean they've changed beyond recognition, but certainly we're now working differently and looking at things differently and in a slightly more creative way. And I think one of the things, just talking about a bit earlier that you mentioned, there's it's about the creative opportunities. And when Greg was talking about off-site build and and we've been talking about fiber optic cabling, there are so many things that are still in demand. So what we're trying to do is make sure that those get into prisons, so that then employers in those areas have a conduit, and that's where demand still lies, where we know there are areas in construction that there are huge. Rail, for example, we've had a lot of demand from both sides. The guys love it. The rail companies have been in touch with us because obviously, particularly during COVID, it was a fantastic time to lend tracks. So there's quite a lot of creative thinking needed from all three of our parts, I think, about what looks like it's out there that people need and how we work with people to do that. But I think most importantly, in response to your question, there are a lot of people in prison that want to work in construction immediately because they see that it's an opportunity they can understand at every level, and similarly, there are a lot of employers that really want to work with people leaving prison.
Good stuff. Okay, I've got a question for you now. That's really helpful. Thank you for that. Imagine, I'm going to come to Greg first. because of your passion for making people, giving people your stated passion. I'm sure everybody's got the same passion, stated passion of giving people another chance. You are, for a period, the CEO of the built environment, and you can do anything you like. What would you change? What can we do to make it a better place and make more of the people you're working with get a better opportunity in there? What bits would you change? Not just from your side, but from anywhere at all.
Wow. You caught me, Terry. Given just fair recruitment and I know I'm going to repeat myself here, but changing the perception on people and just giving those opportunities to the people, not potential mistakes they've made. And I suppose widening that to they're just people, they're just human beings that have made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. And I think having that kind of perception on, yes, let's just change and let's employ the people. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that's what I would think of, really.
Emma, you're next. What can you
Yeah,
change?
I mean, I totally agree with Greg. Totally support that. And I think as well, if there was some way of there being an inclusion, so it wasn't, so we have, for example, ban the box, which is to say, that you don't have to tick the box to say whether you are an ex-offender or that kind of thing. So, is there something that we could do so it's the other way around, so that it's, there's that inclusion there, so everybody is kind of maybe supporting that, so everybody supports either the ban the box or something along those lines, where it goes back to Greg's fair recruitment, really, but it's just giving that individual that opportunity without having to maybe tick that box or something like that.
Okay. Good stuff. And Fran, what's your silver bullet?
I'm glad I was lost because I had more time to think about it. But actually, having had more time to think about it, I can't think of a different answer. So actually, it is about people being open-minded and thinking, when they do take somebody on, just thinking about how they might do that and where they can explore different, different people, and just thinking differently and changing perception. As we always say, changing perception is part of our mission, vision, and everything else. It feels a little bit hackneyed, but absolutely it is what we have to do. We have to make sure people just think slightly differently.
Okay. And so the other question is, we're coming into the final bits now, so it's really trying to work out what the action plan needs to be. But my genie in the corner of the screen has come up with another question, I think. Rebecca?
Well, it's actually just me. I mean, I would just remind the audience, please do put your questions in as we come into the last 15 minutes. And I just wanted to ask you a bit about we have a stated skills shortage, and the research is done. We're very clear where the skills are missing. And is that conversation taking place? Is it joined up between industry saying we definitely need this trade, this profession, these skills, and your ability to go into the prisons in advance to sort of support that training, or even on the outside? So is that conversation joined up, and is the funding there for both of that, all of that? Should we pick on Fran first?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, Rebecca. And funny enough, as we were talking and saying, how can employers find out more about how to employ people in this sector, I was thinking we didn't mention, in fact, building people, did we? Because that's a very good way of them finding out about this sector and every other sector. So actually, we did you a disservice. So I think it is getting joined up. There is definitely, when you say is there funding, probably there isn't funding. And if Maggie was here, she would absolutely say, from Fairer Chance, another organisation in the sector, she would say there really isn't. And I think, but there is, where the need exists, people look more broadly at what's available and how they can find a source of labour or employees. And I think people are beginning, although we've been talking a lot about people opening their minds and thinking differently and exploring different ways of employing people, need does definitely drive people to think differently. And certainly before COVID, well, there was an enormous drive into prisons, massive, and that's why all of us were doing visits with employers all the time, and there was a very different environment. Now we're just adapting to the new world, and I think there is time to, we are biding our time to see how that impacts and will that make a difference. And And a lot of people we've found are still waking up and unfurloughing themselves and coming into a sort of rubbing their eyes and thinking, gosh, this is new. And so we're all experiencing this kind of this whole thing now. And so I find that quite a difficult question to answer, because we're still exploring all the avenues with our employers, but on the whole, we are not getting any shortage of job opportunities. So I think that the jobs are joined up, but definitely is there funding for it is a different question.
Can you comment on that, Emma or Greg, on the funding?
I think, yeah, it's, you know, I understand these stats show that over half of employers say that they are facing skill shortages, and it is a case of looking at those other options now, or maybe options they haven't considered before. And I think, you know, from the feedback that we've had as well, is actually those employers and individuals who have given an opportunity, they have said that they would do that again. And it is kind of, I suppose, being able to for us to promote that, to say, well, actually, maybe we can dispel some of those myths, and maybe this is an opportunity that would be able to help and support your business as well as supporting the individuals as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything you want to add to that, Greg? Or
no, just we work very closely with Welsh Government, and we do work very closely with Welsh Government, and they seem to support us on local employment partnerships, so we get to know where the gaps are in the market. When we're armed with that information, it does give us a rethink to think, okay, we could restructure one of our workshops a little bit different, that there may be a need in 12 months' time for a certain industry and construction. When we're armed with that information, we can actually turn a workshop around and give them really trained men in a skill where it's going to be a shortage in the future. And that's one example on modular housing, modern methods of construction. You know, I think we're a little bit ahead of the game, and we are going to be giving trained men that opportunity, because that is going to be the future in construction, especially house building, in my opinion.
And hopefully women as well. I know what you mean.
Absolutely. Sorry, did I say men? Men and
I
women.
thought I'd say that before one of the ladies chipped into that one.
No, apologies. I want to work really close to the women as well. That's what I'm saying.
But go on, Rebecca.
So I would be interested to know if there are many women coming from the prisons and going into built environment roles, if any of you have any stories to tell. I know Maggie, a story. I think Fran, you might have known the individual as well, the woman that
I mean, there's some fantastic ones. I don't know the case study as much as she does. She spends a lot of time in East Sutton Park and a number of other women's prisons, and has got some fantastic senior roles, actually, women into senior roles in the built environment along the way, and has got a very loyal group of employers who use her for their regular employment now. You know, absolutely. And that's where that's where the balance comes, in terms of, are they just doing it to save themselves paying a recruitment fee? No, they're not. And they do fund, you know, there is funding for that. But I think that, there is the women's prisons are producing a number of people at all levels in construction. There's some very good, there's actually a very good scaffolder who's working in one large organisation at the moment. And, you know, I think people are still surprised. They don't expect a woman to do scaffolding. It's perfectly feasible, and a lot of them are very interested in it. There's sometimes typecasting in women's prisons, or the stereotypical career paths, is not actually what every woman wants to do. And I think, I don't know, Emma, what you would say about that, but I think that often, you know, women are directed in a way to do, hair, makeup, beauty, or whatever it is. And there are loads of them. We've had a lot of women ex-offenders in our painting and decorating business who are actually better painters and decorators by far, I have to say. So, I think there is a lot of opportunity in women's prisons too.
Yeah,
I think that's right. And I think as well that the thing is exactly that. So, you know, it's kind of that thought process of hairdressing or makeup, or I don't know, something very stereotypical. But, you know, there's individuals as well who will say, I can't work inside. I can't be in a classroom environment or an office maybe environment, and they want to be outside in a garden or on a building site or whatever it might be, because that being outside in all weathers is what's the best thing for them. You know, that's how they can get through each day. So I think as well, it's massively important, certainly for a lot of people's health and well-being, because if you're an individual who is not comfortable being inside or working inside or in a classroom environment, then we don't want to be enforcing that, certainly not. And we need to have those opportunities there that are available to say, well, actually, there are other options. And, you know, that could really help someone who's, well, with their health, as I say, health and well-being as well.
Yeah. And just, I got a couple of stories, but one I'd love to share with you guys. So there was, when I first saw the modular housing factory, or I was on site in Oxford, and I first saw this construction of house being built, it was led by a 16-year-old female who had a very tragic background. You know, she'd come through a home and everything like that. And she was the site manager. 16 years old. I've never seen somebody so passionate in my life. And that gave me the light bulb moment to think, if we can do it with this kind of audience, what can we actually do in prisons with the audience that we've got? So I came from a 16-year-old girl that was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Good stuff. That sounds brilliant. And it brings back to the point you started with. It's about the individual. It's not about your preconceived ideas. So that's really good. So I think there's two things we can pick from this. My job is to get the action plan so we can share it with everybody tomorrow. And I've got two, and I want to see if you think I've hit them on the head, if you like. I think one of the things that we could do, and this is as a community, not just building people, but all of us together, is try and do something to try and break down those preconceived ideas and make the opportunities that there are to recruit people from the ex-offender community, if you like, into the construction sector, because the demand will come back. I mean, we still have 300,000 homes needed in the UK, and we still have all the infrastructure projects going on. So the demand that was there before COVID hit hasn't gone, and the need for it hasn't gone. It's just been the implementation is delayed. And I saw data last week of 15,000 new starts in a quarter, I think, of homes, and that's kind of nowhere near what we need to have. So there's still a demand, and it will come back once we work out how to manage ourselves in the COVID environment. So the demand will be there, and we can do a role, and I'd be interested to talk to you more about how we actually might change that image and do something there. And then there's a kind of a marketing element to it in reaching out to employers, because you know, there are so many, it's such a fragmented sector. And it might be worth working with some of the industry bodies or trade associations to see if we could actually work through them as well, to see if there's some kind of support or funding they would give to sponsoring ex-offenders into roles into their sector. So those two things, I think perhaps we could work collaboratively on, because, you know, I don't know, there are other people as well. You're not the whole prison population isn't coming to you guys, or maybe Emma's got a national role, maybe that's true, but there are lots of people out there trying to make this happen, and we can hopefully bring a lot more of the industry to come and call on this source of employees. Do you think that would be useful?
Yeah, very useful.
Is there anything else you think that we could do as building people, or should do as building people, to try and drive your agendas and try and improve join the dots between the people who are looking for roles and the industry?
I've always in favour of bringing people into a prison environment, and I hope now that I'm not, because I actually don't know how many we're talking to, so I don't want to inundate prisons. But I think Emma will agree with me. For the people that are maybe listening to this now, to come into a prison, to see what we are training and see these men and women, I think that's a really key on changing perceptions. I think that could be really something that we could do.
That'd be good then. So perhaps we could arrange a workshop or go and try and find some employers from other parts through trade associations, perhaps, or local. I'm thinking some of I know that in having been at the CIB myself, if you have a criminal record, you have to declare it when you're becoming a professional. I think it's up to the discretion of the panel then whether you are granted your professional status, assuming you hit the other criteria. I'm not sure how that all works in detail. It didn't come up very often, but maybe we could actually work with some of the bodies around the country and see if we can get local visits going. That might be quite a good action.
Yeah.
Anything else you think we should do for you, or we should do for ourselves? Not for you, but together.
I think by definition, by joining the dots, you're creating something that's invaluable, because there is that confusion. So I think that is a major point. And also, if you wanted to, I think, to help support while we can't go into prisons, I think it would be really good to have, you know, support on different ways of talking to people leaving prison, and we're doing a lot on Zoom at the moment with various employers. I think there's thinking creatively about how we can get people to meet the individuals, and so the individuals can demonstrate their talent and abilities without necessarily having to go in during the time, because obviously it will come back one day, but during the time when it's quite hard to go into prisons. Well, I don't know, Greg, if it's at the moment, I don't think people can go in, can they, in your terms?
No, not at the moment, but you know, I'd like to think that that would change.
Oh,
shortly.
sure, absolutely.
We could think about doing a virtual prison visit to see, get people to do kind of a sort of camera thing. Let's pursue that conversation. But I think thank you very much for that your time and your thoughts there. I think we've come to a point where I can just hand over to Rebecca for the final plug for the crowdfunding and the future events we're coming along to. But thank you all very much for your contributions. It's been really good to talk to you. Rebecca?
Beautifully done, Terry. And I would just reiterate that that's the whole point of the communities. So bringing together the organisations that work with the prisons. Our role at Building People is just to facilitate that and hear from you in a joined up fashion, what is it we can do together, and then to do that. We can't really do it though, unless we have industry backing us by supporting the crowdfunder, which launched this week, and we're getting lots of pledges in the background, and we're really proud of how much it's moving forward and how we're doing this so collaboratively. So a quick plug for the crowdfunder, but what I will do is I will end with an enormous thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Fran, and Terry. Also, thank you to you.